Wow. Wow. Was that so damn hard? It is my duty to give you, and I can't believe I'm going to say this, a positive review of Star Trek Picard Season 3. And that review with Kitty starts now. Sailors and Star Nuts, this is Swords and Starships, and I am Captain Garrett, and this is my review of The Next Generation. I have got to say, I'm kind of speechless. First episode of Star Trek Picard Season 3, entitled The Next Generation. That's member-berry bait if I ever saw it, and yet it was good. It was really good. Ending the credits with the acoudigrams and the first contact music. Wow, nice touch. Nice touch there. Now let's get some things out of the way. This was good, but it was not great, and it definitely still was suffering from some of the remnants of Kurtzman Trek, and there's no doubt about that. Number one, why is everything so darkly lit? Why? I noticed this in the very first episode of Discovery. One of the very first scenes that showed me this wasn't going to be Star Trek was Michael Burnham in front of the court-martial board, and they were all in a dark, dour, scary-looking room, like she's being interrogated by the Gestapo. What's going on here? Why is every set so like go watch any Star Trek series, even Deep Space Nine, which had I would argue the darkest kind of mood of any of the original five, because it was a Cardassian space station. Even Deep Space Nine was a brightly lit set, and I can't help but notice we've still got the dark lighting, we've got the lens flares, we've got the seedy underbelly of the galaxy. This episode felt close to how the Next Generation actually feels, and that had a hell of a lot to do with one William T. Riker, Captain former of the USS Titan. And it really helped a lot that Picard was there playing off of him. I still think we have the same problems with Jean-Luc being something of a doddering old man. However, it's interesting. It seemed like there was more energy and life in his character having Riker there to play off of him. And I have to say, I liked Seven a lot more. She seemed to actually have a purpose in this universe like she did in Voyager. And I particularly like the fact that the name Janeway came up in the episode. Wow, nice. Here's the thing. This is the thing, though, that Kurtzman does really well. It uses lore. Disney, Star Wars does this well, too. They use lore in really clever and interesting ways. Both lore from the characters, lore from the old series, just, little nice touches like Picard picking up the flute from the episode. The Inner Light, that was the name of the episode. I didn't have to Google that. So they bring up those nice little relics of the show you used to know, but then what you're actually watching is this awful dystopian wreck. And I am happy to say that was not the case here. A serious red flag for me, however, is this notion to trust no one. Now, I realize this is a plot device, an inciting incident to get us going, and I appreciate that. However, once again, we're implying that Starfleet is untrustworthy and is this kind of bloated, corrupt organization, and I really don't like that. And I worry that that is once again the direction that we might be headed in this show. Much of the first episode was very much like a love letter to Star Trek The Next Generation in very subtle ways. The acoudigrams, which if you are not as nerdy as I am, the acoudigrams is a fan colloquial term for the unique little button design that all the panels had in Star Trek The Next Generation and really Deep Space Nine and Voyager. Those were very carefully designed by Michael Okuda, who was the technical guy on all of the Star Trek series, most of the Star Trek series, and he was sort of the technical advisor who could tell people how things worked. He was a big author behind the Starfleet technical manuals, a lot of those books that came out. They were called the Akutograms. This show completely recreates the look and the feel of the computer panels once again. This finally feels like Star Trek. There's not all this insane psychedelic freaking holograms flying everywhere and people are waving their hands in space. It's like actual panels, and the Akutograms look familiar but also more advanced, and I really like that. And I think that is a sign that Terry Matalas, who pretty much ran this season, according to Robert Meyer Burnett, hat tip YouTube channel, the Burnett Network. Clearly, Terry Matalas loved Star Trek The Next Generation for what it was. The design of the Titan, there's a lot to love. It's basically a redesign of the original Constitution class from the original series, and as Riker points out, it's called the Neo-Constitution class, which I think is super cool. And what's really amazing is the saucer section has that slope that the Kirk saucer section had, and it's really beautiful. And it when you see the profile of the ship as it leaves space dock, by the way, space dock has never looked more incredible. As it's gliding into space, it has the almost, I know there's no aerodynamics in space, but it has that kind of same aerodynamic look that Kirk's Enterprise had. So it's a really beautiful nod. You know, look, one thing Kurtzman Trek has never done poorly, generally the visuals have looked amazing, and when they recreate things from the old series, they look incredible. Like, you know, there was a great scene in the first season of Picard with an old Romulan warbird from the original Kirk era, and it was cool. It looked great. So, you know, that's never been my problem. It looks great. If anything, the reason I've had such animus for this series up until now is because there are so many beautiful, incredible, well recreated sets and designs, but it is the story and it is the characters that hit every wrong note. Now, does this actually feel like a Star Trek The Next Generation episode? Not really. What Star Trek Picard Season 3 most feels like to me right now, having seen one episode, it feels closest to Star Trek First Contact in terms of the aesthetic, the characters, the action, the story. Which, by the way, in my book, is a good thing. And that's a good thing. This is an incredible turnaround, and I can't even believe it. I never would have watched this if I hadn't seen that one clip on Open Bar, and man, it was like a closing argument for the jury that Mr. Burnett made that day. And there was a feeling of reassurance that, like, this is going to pay off. This is here for a reason. This is not here just to dangle a bait and switch in front of my face and make me think this is Star Trek right before, you know, Samurai Kid starts lopping off heads and poor old Hugh gets a knife to the throat and the brother and sister Romulan twins start bumping uglies. None of this undoes the events of the first two seasons. It was mentioned that this show openly kind of mocks the first two seasons of Star Trek Picard. Well, I'm still waiting for that, and I am eagerly anticipating it. I'm looking for it, believe me. I hunted for Jean-Luc Picard's, and what I'm saying is, those two seasons can never be undone. Just like The Last Jedi can never be undone. It will stand for all time as a monument to the destruction of a once great franchise. A tribute, if you will, to hubris and unbridled avarice of corporate filmmaking. And so shall stand Picard Season 1 and 2. There's really nothing in this episode that undoes really anything. I mean, as I'm watching this and enjoying it, I can't help but think, and the Borg Queen turned out to be the psychopathic doctor who merged with her, and the Borg decided they're not going to assimilate anymore because now they've found love and friendship. That still exists. And also, probably the biggest problem this show has right now is Raffi is still in it. Why do they like this character? I don't understand it. I really don't. Mr. Alex Kurtzman, just let us have this one. If it's good, just let us have this one and let this series go. Let this series go away and end. This is what Star Trek Picard Season 1 should have been. Was it so hard? Was it so hard? It's not even a complicated story. It's a very simple, speaking of the first episode, it is a very simple inciting incident. It is, they get out there, they're in space, they're in uniform, they're in starships. They're in starships. I named my channel after them, for God's sake. Was that so hard? You know what I should do? I should do one of those like cry reaction videos like people were doing with the Rise of Skywalker trailer. Just do like a TikTok of just it's the first contact music. It's so good. Oh my God. See how upsetting that would be? That just would be upsetting for the animals, for all involved. You don't want that. You don't want that kind of upset. Kurtzman will never be forgiven. And I really am terrified of the prospect of this season doing well and him like taking credit and coming back in and just ruining it all over again, which at this point he'd probably do just for fun and spite. No, I'm not ready to shed tears. I'm not ready to forgive and forget. But I am ready for episode 2 and one more review, my dear sailors and star knots. Please do tell me in the comments, am I betraying everything we stand for as Trekkies? Should I be ignoring this series? Should I just be letting it die? Am I being sucked in again just so they can stick the knife in one more time? I don't know. But I have to try. For you, for me, I have to try. And so that is my review of Star Trek Picard Season 3, Episode 1, The Next Generation. I do thank you for listening, sailors and star knots. If you liked this video, please do like and subscribe. And until the next episode of Star Trek, never forget to engage. Make sure to check out my novel series, Blood and Oak. It's available now on Amazon. It follows the sword and sails adventures of midshipman John Sullivan. When his sister is kidnapped and sold into slavery by the Barbary pirates, this daring young Navy officer embarks on a suicidal quest for rescue and revenge. It's available now on Amazon in Kindle, paperback, and a fantastic audiobook narrated by Travis Baldry. I'm not just giving commentary and commenting on the problems in entertainment. I'm doing my best to be part of the solution, and I would be truly honored to earn your readership and your support. Until then, I say hail to you, hail to the Fellowship, and hail to the Iron Age of entertainment.